While you will be rigging, you will most certainly encounter a situation where you have to reset something to its default value. This can be some simple task just to keep the relationship between objects, or even a complex one where you have to create some sort of a reset function for something more complex. So imagine that you have a character walking and you have a default pose for your character. Want to create a reset button, for example, for its hands or legs, anything like that, but to keep all those relationships intact. Let me show you quickly what I mean to describe it. We have here two simple cubes. The yellow one is the parent and this violet one is the child. Although here under character menu, under commands, we have a reset PSR command, and I will show you what that means. It means basically reset position, scale, and rotation. So let's do just that. And this is the result. Let me undo that and I will explain you what happened. This reset PSR command basically clears all these values to 0. So it sets XYZ to 0, size to initial size, and rotation to 0. Although this can be useful, it is really not flexible and versatile. Why? Well, simply because of the fact that you will need sometimes just to reset a single value. For example, you might want to reset rotation only. You might want to reset position only. You might even want to reset a position or rotation or scale on a single axis. This is where we have to create our custom control. And just to demonstrate you how limited this is, so let's, for example, pull this parent up a bit and try to reset the position. What if we want this position to be the position you will reset into? If you try now the character command reset PSR, it will always do a 0, 0, 0 command. If the object has no parent, let me demonstrate that. It will go to world center, just like this. Let me create that relationship once again. The first thing you can do is to help yourself with this freeze transformation guy. So let's freeze all these values like this. So this becomes the 0. So if I move this a bit and do a character commands reset PSR, it will snap back to a world center because this parent guy has no parent. But if I move this violet child object that has a parent, that same command will reset to 0, 0, 0 freezed coordinates. So you can help yourself with freeze transformation. That is very useful. But this freeze transformation also has the problem of, let me just rotate this guy also. And if I do a reset command, it will reset both position and rotation. And what if I don't want that? What if I only want to reset the rotation or position? We have to have something a little bit better than this. And the solution comes in the form of simple scripting. Let me show you how simple and easy it is to create a script inside Cinema4D. I'll just show you here under Script Manager. I have it docked here in the layout. And if you don't see it or you don't have it in your layout, simply go here, Window, Script Manager. So let's create a simple script just for resetting the position, not the rotation. So I will shift select those three guys here until they are highlighted a bit with this gray color, and I will right click and do a create script command. You will instantly see that Cinema4D opens that script manager for you. So you will probably have this window floating somewhere around here. I have it docked here just for a personal preference, nothing else. Although you can see some geeky stuff and lines, and you shouldn't worry about that. What is important is this execute. So if I, let's say, arbitrarily move those guys and hit execute, it will snap back to its original value. Let's try that also, but with rotation. Something like this, some crazy rotation. Let's try. And there you go. We only have the position reset. We have the rotations intact. This is really important, although it may not seem now. It will be very clear once you start creating controllers on your characters and try to rig something complex. The beauty of these scripts is that they are reusable. If you go to Window, Layout, Command Manager, and type this script 1 in the name, that command will pop up. You can see it here. And the good thing is you can drag it into the viewport like this. You can even rename it to have a meaning. So reset position and try refresh here, and you will see the name changed accordingly. The great thing also is you can save your scripts. They are reusable and they work on every single object. So this reset position will reset any object to its 0 value. So let's try. Let's select this parent and do a reset position. And it will go to root center. Let me undo that. And I will freeze all transformations. So I will get 0 values here. So this current position will become the default one. So let's freeze all, move it anywhere we want and do a reset position. It always works. And this is the power of scripting. It can save you a lot of time when you would manually enter values and really do some tedious, inefficient workflows. Although this setup is very, very flexible, you may run into a specific situation where you have to have a setup where you can input the numbers you need. So you may want to use different values than 0, 0, 0 for the resets. So how do we do it? The answer is with Expresso. So firstly I will zero out these values. You see how tedious it is without setting up a reset button. It really can eat a lot of time when you are doing something. Just for the sake of tutorial, I will delete this parent guy, and to delete it without deleting the children object, we'll simply right click and say delete without children. So we have only this violet cube. It is always good practice to clean up, so you won't need this material. And you can simply remove everything that is not used in the scene by function remove unused materials. Always avoid cluttering your scene with unnecessary data. So now as you see, wherever we move this guy and do a reset position, and in this case it snapped all the way here, simply because that was the default value. It has no parent, so be aware of those tiny little things. So let's also delete this guy, we'll remove it from the viewport. And let's put some different values here. Let's try something like 150 here and 250 here, and hit apply. And let's say we want to create a setup where this is the default value, without using scripts, without using reset PSR command. So there are situations where you will be forced to use this kind of a setup. Unfortunately, I cannot still explain you why, but you will see that in later lessons. First, I have to create a user data for my object. So let's create add user data. So what kind of the user data I need? I think the best setup for this would be a little checkbox that would say Simply when it's checked, go to these coordinates. And this type of interface is Boolean. And let's name this switch. And we can leave all this to default. This default value simply tells will it be on or off for the default value. I want it to be off for the default value. Here in the example you can clearly see what does it look like. So it's a simple checkbox. We'll hit OK. And here under user data you can see we have a switch. You could actually manage user data and say this is a reset switch. And here, okay, just to keep things clear. And obviously we will need a espresso tag for it. And we will build our simple espresso system. You can see I always dock this here. Just easier for me. It's personal preference. It doesn't have to be the same for you naturally. So let's really dissect what we need. We need this object, this switch on this object, to send information to this same object to go to these coordinates. I hope that didn't confuse anyone. So it's really simple. If we click on this guy, this object will go to these coordinates. I think that is rather simple. So always do what you obviously have to do. You have to have this object in the espresso and his switch. Second condition you have to meet is that you actually want to output a position value from here. So select here position. So now, since you actually cannot wire this back to the input here, you have to copy this object in the espresso. This won't copy it anywhere else. It will just create a new relationship in the espresso. So control drag it somewhere like here, and if you double click on these dots you can actually remove those ports. Since you want the object to receive these values, these are the position values, so you will have to put position here also. And if you connect these two guys now, absolutely nothing will happen. You will probably have some very weird results because you currently don't have a node that can tell this one to receive these values. You have to have a node that can accept that type of data. And this node is called condition node here under logic. And it's useful because it has a switch built into it. I'll try to avoid being too technical here, so you'll probably hear something that is not really technically correct, but it will really give you a good idea how things work inside Espresso. So some of you that are really acquainted with Espresso can yeah, but you're doing it right, but you're saying it a little bit wrong. Please don't worry about that. You have to understand there are many new users watching, and I want to ease that transition into Espresso. So basically what I want to do is next. I want this reset switch to turn this guy on. I want to also to tell it to output a position once it's turned on. And if I click on this condition node, you'll see that I again don't have 3 boxes. I should have X, Y, and Z boxes to actually copy that values I want to use as a reset position. That can be changed by this data type. And since all positions in 3D space are actually vector data, we will select vector. Don't be afraid by so many data types here. They are really easily understandable. Probably you won't use more than 5 of them, to be honest. So now we can input those values. And this first is like this first one here. So X, Y, and Z. So X, Y, and Z. So let's input those values. Let's say 350. And you can jump through these boxes by pressing the tab key. 150. and the last one is 250. And that's about it. So we can connect the output now here, and let's test our switch. Let's select our child object and simply move this somewhere and hit the reset switch, and it works. Once again, I want to clarify this a bit. So basically we are saying that this switch will enable this condition. It will send position command, and that position will be this one, and it will output it to the position of the same object. I hope this is not difficult to understand. So turn the condition on, put the position. Which position? This one. Really simple to understand. Don't be afraid to spend time dissecting these setups. It can be really helpful. So any coordinates that you enter here, this input free of the condition node, will be the reset value for your object. So if you enter something like 200 here maybe, and do a reset switch, now it automatically reset it because it's currently always turned on. And you actually have a little bit of a problem with this setup. If this reset switch is turned on, you cannot move that cube, you cannot change the position, since Espresso, as we said in earlier lessons, takes the control. And as you can see, if I uncheck this guy, I can once again move it. And as soon as I turn it on, it snaps back to that reset position which is set here. And this is not really desirable. I want to have a freedom of movement. The best solution here would be if we could actually click on this guy, and once we click, it should uncheck automatically. So it should do a reset command, send that object to that reset position, but automatically turn off once it does so. To do that, we will simply modify this setup just a bit. With this reset switch, we turned this switch on. We can use this same one to output to the same data. But we once again can even reposition those guys within Espresso, as you can see. So we want this reset switch to be connected to the same reset switch, but to create turn on and instantly turn off once you did the reset position command. For that, we will use another condition node. So let me copy this one. I don't need these values here anymore, and I'll just scale this a bit so we can actually see a little bit better. And for this to work, we have to change the data type here to bool. And bool is basically a switch, and you have two states in a switch, two states in the bool itself, 0 and 1. So if I connect this reset switch here, it will send an on command. But as soon as it does that, it will send the off command. I hope this is not too confusing. Bool is really simple to understand, and I don't need those input 2 and input 3 guys. I just need one of them. So let's try this setup. Let's select our object, move it somewhere, and do a reset command. And you can actually see, watch carefully here. I will check it, and it will simply uncheck as soon as it does the command. I hope I haven't lost anyone with this lesson, and I showed you really a few ways you can reset your objects. And with this setup, you can reuse it also as a script. You will simply copy the tag itself, and you will also have to copy this user data. And you can copy user data by simply right-clicking on it and stating copy user data interface. And if you create a new object, you will simply go here, user data, paste user data interface. So it will create all those things inside user data you have created, regardless of how many things you have in there. So that's it now for the espresso and switches and various things with espresso and scripting, and we will talk now about joints.